So what you're about to see here is the video I sent to Irrational Games as part of their level design test to work on Bioshock Infinite. And I made this whole level in response to a brief where I had to show what I think a really vertical space could be in the city of Columbia, the city that the game takes place in. I'm just going to jump straight into the video and just talk about everything I can think of. Let's jump in. So this was all made in UDK, which was the Unreal Development Kit.
That thing took Elizabeth. I've got to find her.
All the visual assets you're seeing were part of the UDK. I didn't make any or buy any myself. And a lot of the audio I'm using is actually sampled from trailers that were released at the time. I thought this really helped to kind of create the atmosphere of the game.
This preview coming up will be like our first attempt at showing that.
There's loads for me to talk about here, so I'll watch through this video several times and go through more and more detail as I go along. What you're seeing here is me trying to create kind of as much proper combat gameplay with as much verticality as I can, using the very minimal amount of AI scripting that you can do with the AI in the UDK. But the emphasis isn't really on the quality of the combat, but it's more just the sheer kind of variety of verticality in the spaces. Things like, what if you were attacked from behind by people jumping on the skylines? Stuff like this. What if you deal with that enemy and there's an enemy below you and a floor, below you in the building? I literally listed out all of the different examples of verticality that I could think of and just made a level with as many of them as I could. There's a little kind of moment of having to sneak out after that guy and find him in the streets. Enemies really far away and high above you in a building opposite you. Here is the idea where, what if you were jumping onto a skyline and using crates that were flying on the skyline as cover? So here's that little moment. Just trying to jam in as many ideas as I can. What if there was another person on skylines and you are on one yourself and you're shooting between each other on different skylines? And then big set piece coming here. The building opposite you gets blown up. Kind of crumbles towards you. Now the player's kind of stuck fighting to survive on this building, and the blimp that is kind of going crazy with all these rockets ends up firing at the building you're in. And the building you're in ends up collapsing out of the sky.
Ventured, nothing gained.
And you kind of jump down onto this oddly kind of floating in the air, completely unrealistically bit of skyline and escaping to the end of the level. Okay, so that's the video. I'm going to keep playing through it now and just talking, and I'll pause it a lot more now and kind of tell you what's going on. And wait, there we go. Okay. That sound effect, in case you're wondering, is sampled from the beginning of Blade Runner. Not exactly important, but now you know that I steal from the best. So I get straight into it, and my first thing is to set up the fact that you're in a city floating in the sky, because that was the new kind of unique, amazing thing about Bioshock Infinite when it was announced.
That thing took Elizabeth. I've got to find her.
And I reuse not only the Songbird character, but that bit of dialogue, which sets up, you know, the simple general premise of what you're trying to do, which is trying to find Elizabeth. One of the biggest main things you might be thinking, and certainly I got asked about it when I interviewed there, was like, did I really make the skylines? It said in the brief that of course you don't have to make skylines work yourself, just kind of place them where you think they should be, kind of thing. You know, block out placeholder geo. But when I was making the level, I realized, coming off my experience working on Bulletstorm, an FPS with lots of scripted content made in Unreal 3, I knew how to use the matinee system. The matinee system, which is a cinematics animation system to kind of script the animation of basic things like walls falling down and platforms moving and doors opening and stuff. And I realized I could simulate, kind of fake the functionality of the skylines with the matinee system. So what you're seeing here is actually the player falling on invisible platforms that are moving on the same path as the skyline, in sync with sound effects that I've sampled from the trailers to make it feel like you're riding the skyline, to show what it would be like to ride the skylines, even though none of this is actually gameplay. It's literally me just moving around standing on top of an invisible platform with sound effects triggered. But it works really well, right? It really feels like, wow, how is this person... lots of people ask me, how did you implement the skylines? And I'm like, it's not a skyline, right? But it's a good skill to have as a level designer, to be able to find clever ways to script things and pitch an idea before the real tech is there, you know? And just find clever ways to show your ideas in a way that is cool and engaging. If I go back there, that's another little trick I did. The reason that there's a flower there is because that's my marker where the trigger volume is. When I walk onto this flower, it's when I walk onto this flower that the animation is started, and an invisible platform underneath me suddenly starts moving and lifts me up onto the skyline with a jump sound and everything, with the path cleverly designed to look like a jump, but it's not. It's just I'm just standing on a platform. That, for what it's worth, is a random tenuous reference to Atlas. It was just an asset that was in the UDK of an Atlas style guy holding the globe on his back, and that was supposed to be. I just threw it in there as a kind of tenuous reference to not only the character in Bioshock 1.
Now, would you kindly find a crowbar or something?
But also the idea of America as Atlas, the America carrying the weight of the world on its back. I'm sure zero people at Irrational picked up on that as a reference, but I threw it in there anyway, because why not? So like I said earlier, this is just designing, as much verticality and as much different situations based around verticality as I can into the level. I like that there's a little moment of quiet and kind of tension, you could say, where that guy was scripted to run out of the building, and as a player now I've got to peek out around the corner and chase him out of the building and wonder where he is, and I end up getting shot in the face. So I like the moment, the idea that there's a change of pace for a moment at least, and it's not just me running and gunning and constant shooting. Even though obviously the rest of the video is a lot of shooting. Took me ages to record this video and kind of not miss everybody loads, partly because I think in hindsight some of the enemies are too far away, for the weapon that I'm using, this weird Unreal Tournament laser thing, but not really important for this video. Again, different situations. I'm on a skyline now. What if the player is on a skyline shooting at static targets? Yeah, what if there's another one on the skyline? Get this cool view below as we ride the skylines and switch between them. Packing in as many ideas as I could in there. And this set piece I'm really happy with, the way it ends, because I think it shows, what this bit shows is a really, well, a sense of drama and kind of narrative and something that logically, dramatically builds up to a crescendo that is kind of surprising, but also makes sense. And so this is kind of beat 2 of it. In fact, I'll rewind to the beginning of the video and show you what I mean. It's right at the start. Sorry, let me just get to this section of the video. This bit, right? So you're riding down the skyline very early on. Chaos everywhere. Somebody says fire, and this rocket destroys the skyline in front of you. And this is kind of sudden surprise that you're falling, and then you manage to grasp onto this other skyline. So there, I'm introducing the idea that there is this somebody somewhere is firing these rockets, blowing things up. And so that means that when you come to, where is it? When you come to this section, it's not completely out of the blue that there is this blimp ahead of you. You know, again, which I've shown in trailers and stuff. And you hear it again. So you're not hearing it for the first time, you're seeing it now up close for the second time. And you see how, oh my god, they're blowing up the building, you know? So it's this kind of nice dramatic moment that comes from them attacking the building near you. And then it finishes off with the surprise that they would attack the building you're in. And yes, gameplay is going to continue as this building you're in collapses around you. And you're literally falling out of the sky. And it's like, holy shit. You know, I wanted to do something that would normally be a cutscene, but do it as gameplay. And where you experience it all from first person. I'm really happy with the smoke effect, that thing falling down. And particularly those crates. I'm actually, every time I watch that, I'm surprised at how convincing it looks. The way that I managed to animate them so that they're kind of stuck to the building as they slide down. But then I animated it so that it looks like it falls loose and falls off the building. Even now I can't really remember exactly how I did it. But it looks really nice and convincing and sells the idea that, holy shit, you're collapsed, you know, you're falling out of the sky right now.
Ventured, nothing gained.
And then I kind of reused the finale from one of their trailers.
Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
I kind of wish the cherry on top would have been loads of big explosions when that building falls into the building below it there. But doesn't matter. It's still cool. And so I think that's beyond like level design in the typical layout design and combat stuff. I think what I've showed there is a good sense of like drama and something that feels like a climax and that makes sense. And that there's a sense of structure that builds up to that climax, which is quite nice. I'm quite happy with it even now. Yeah, let's watch it again and see if there's anything else I can think of. Oh yeah, another huge thing is that, as is a common theme with my stuff, this is a crazy amount of work in hindsight. And this is something that Forrest Dowling, the lead level designer who made the test, he's acknowledged that like he would never design a test like this again, because it's one of the kind of issues with it in hindsight is that it doesn't specify how long I should have spent on this test and how big a level you should make. There wasn't a time limit on the test. It explicitly said to just kind of make something cool. And so, you know, I really wanted this job. I spent I don't think I spent an insane amount of time on it, but I spent several weeks on it. And, you know, in hindsight, I'm assuming that most people who did this test didn't make anything nearly as big as this. Having said that, I think I found a lot of ways to make something that feels big quite quickly.
I've got to find.
You know, a lot of the combat stuff is fairly basic at the end of the day. the skylines aren't nearly as complicated as they look because, like I said, they're just animated invisible platforms. You know, things like these floating buildings that you see, just to kind of sell this sense of scale and the floating city thing. You know, I'm really happy with that, but that's just a load of cubes in these dome meshes that were part of the UDK. It's really simple, you know, to throw that together and then just animate the whole thing in one go, you know, just to make it float around like a building. And I suppose that's another kind of fundamental creative goal I had in mind with this project, was I saw it as my job to sell the idea of a city in the sky, because that was what was kind of bonkers and cool and unique about Bioshock Infinite's setting. And, you know, as a level designer, I don't just want to leave that stuff to the narrative or the art. You know, I want the levels to be selling this idea. And so, you know, everything from the kind of crazy out design of these spaces, to be honest, and also the whole stuff involving the blimp and the rockets and you falling and the buildings that you're in being blown up and collapsing and falling out of the sky. All of it was, you know, designed to do level design that you can only do with this license and with a world that is set in the sky. You don't want to just be throwing in generic level design that could belong in any game. You know, you got to make it unique and make it really push what is cool about Bioshock Infinite in this case. And so, you know, you can see everything that I've done through that lens as well. I'm trying to make it stuff that you could only do in Bioshock Infinite. I was really pleased that my sneaky trick of the invisible platforms to kind of move the player around as if they were on the skylines, it also worked with the AI surprisingly well. And particularly this section that's coming up, when you go into this building and, you know, one of the AIs kind of seems to follow you on a skyline. Obviously, they're just spawned out of vision. You know, those sound effects just played to make it sound like somebody just jumped on a skyline, but they're just spawned on it. But this guy actually looks like he jumps off it, which is cool. Like, the AI animated his legs as if he was actually jumping off the platform, which I didn't do. And it just did it and it looked good, which is cool. So yeah, I hope this has been useful. Like I say, the main lessons here that I would like people to take away is the first thing of not doing as much work as I did. This is a bit bonkers. I should have made something way smaller than this. But also, I think what I did well here was show that I did level design that is completely unique to the game that I'm applying to work on. And I'm really trying to sell the idea of what they were trying to do in a way that matches the tone of their trailers. Because the trailers were always so epic and dramatic, and I wanted everything in this little video to be epic and dramatic. The other thing for level design in general is that, like I said, I like that I've built something that has a sense of structure and drama to it. That this crescendo that we're kind of building up to in the finale doesn't just come out of the blue. It's using an element that I introduced at the start of the level, these rockets being fired by this blimp, initially off screen, but now right in front of us. I just like the structure of this video and the experience that is conveyed and how it feels like the ending really feels like an ending, you know? And it's interesting to me to think how I couldn't have done any of this without my experience on Bulletstorm, where we were, as level designers, we were pitching lots of ideas, using the matinee system to script animations to show things like this. And, you know, that left me, it meant that I knew how to animate things like this, like those crates, and sell this idea, which, you know, is really fortunate in the end, I suppose. So yeah, I hope this was interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments, all that usual stuff. Yeah, that's it. Cheers for watching. See ya.